Hi, good afternoon. This is Barbara Reynolds of the VISTA Training Unit. We are going to get started with today's presentation for our staff in just about 1 minute. If you can hang on for a second, we will be right back with you. Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to today's presentation for ORO staff. My name is Barbara Reynolds, and I'm the director of the VISTA Training Unit. I'm going to be starting off our presentation today with some logistical announcements, and then we will jump right in with our colleagues in the VISTA Member Support Unit. So before we begin, I do want to run through just a few logistics for this webinar to indicate a couple of things that I hope will be useful for you as we go through today's presentation. I do think you hopefully heard at the top of the hour, we are recording today's presentation, and we will have that recording available for you in about a week or so, and we'll let you know when the recording is ready. You do have audio. Hopefully right now you are hearing my voice through your computer or on the phone line that's indicated for you on the screen. And just to give me some sense of the audience and the listeners, if you do hear my voice, if you could open up the chat and type a message to all panelists and attendees. And that message should just be, yes, I can hear you. Hey, what's up? What's going on? HQ, why does Zoom rock? Okay, great, thank you. Can hear you loud and clear. Thanks, guys. Thank you for that. It is the eerie, silent world of webinars that makes me feel lonely as a trainer. So it's helpful to see your names and your words on the chat, and also super helpful to know that you, in fact, can hear us, and I hope it is loud and clear for everyone. So this audio that we are using will be how we manage all of our speakers today. You guys know, I think you are muted. We will work very hard to unmute you for Q&A verbally as we get into the bulk of our presentation. There are a couple of Zoom features that you can also access if something comes up during the presentation. There's a Q&A box if you have a specific question like when will we get these slides, or when is the next webinar. Feel free to put that question in there or chat a comment where you've just now indicated you can hear me. As our presenters are speaking, I'll keep an eye on the Q&A in the chat. Depending on what you're asking, I may not respond. I may hold the questions for the VMSU at the end. But just want to know that you have both of those features. And as I said, I did mention this session is being recorded, so we are jumping right in. So for today, you know, based on the Outlook invitation and hopefully the material that you've seen, we're just going to have some quick introductions of who's here in the room at VISTA headquarters, just so you know who's on with us today. We will then ask you guys to do some quick introductions via the chat. So we'll do typed introductions from our ORO colleagues. Our content today is focused all about the magic of placing VISTA members. So you can see the VMSU is going to talk with you about placement, orientations, eligibility, and really emphasize a number of the resources that you have at your disposal in this important role that you have. We will look at Q&A. We will see how much time we have and how we can do that either on the phone or in the chat in writing. I just have a quick survey asking for some feedback on today's presentation and some closing comments to wrap up. So that is our agenda. I do want to disclose, in the interest of full transparency for all of our colleagues, this is our first Zoom webinar that we are leading as a team, so please forgive any any hesitations or any hiccups logistically as we get into this. But to do our introductions, we're going to ask you in the chat to share these items, and I'll read these out in case it's not visible for you or legible on your screen. And I'm going to ask my colleagues in the room verbally to also share this information. So we'll do this quickly. We're asking you to type in your full name so we can see it. Where are you? What's your office location? Super Bowl pick, if you have one. I know football's not everybody's bag. No worries. Similarly, if you have a favorite best movie pick for the Oscars, please share that. It may not be your bag. Or finally, if neither of those two strike your fancy, then what's your favorite thing about winter? So I'll begin and then introduce and turn over to my colleague Brendan. As I said, my name is Barbara Reynolds. I'm here at HQ in Washington, D.C. I don't have a Super Bowl pick because my beloved Baltimore Ravens were eliminated, and I'm still bitter. My best movie pick is Jojo Rabbit. Cannot overemphasize that. And I have nothing favorite about winter. It's not my favorite season. Next up, we have Brendan Murphy, Director of the VISTA Member Support Unit.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. As Barbara said, Brendan Murphy, VMSU Director. For the Super Bowl, I'm just happy I don't have to watch the Patriots play this year. So anyone, it's a win. I haven't seen a movie in a long time, and I love doing snow angels with my children. Aww. But I'm glad you all are on this call today, and looking forward to having some good conversation.
Great, thanks.
Hi there, my name is Kate Jordan. I work with the VISTA Member Support Unit. My Super Bowl pick is going to be more snack related. I'm a nacho girl. I also like pigs in a blanket. My Oscar Best Movie pick, like Barbara, really enjoyed Jojo Rabbit. Also, Parasite was great if you haven't seen it. And my favorite thing about winter is my birthday is in January.
Hey, this is Samantha Stout, also with the VISTA Member Support Unit. I'm a Panthers fan, so I have no dog in this fight, but I'm pulling for the Chiefs. I don't watch a lot of movies, and the favorite thing about winter is literally nothing.
I'm with you on that thing. And then our last in-person introduction here at HQ, it is a delight to say, today is the second day on the job of our new Deputy Director. Fresh face in the office. Our own Carly Bruder has come home, I think, as Desiree says, and I know you guys have heard this and seen Carly online and on the phone, so welcome, Carly.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So, hi, y'all. I'm Carly Bruder. I am here in D.C. I don't care about sports at all, ever, but I recently learned the 49ers have a female in their coaching staff, and I want them to win for that reason only. I don't have an Oscar Best Pick this year. I'm over the Oscars in general. And my favorite thing about winter is really thick, cozy socks.
Socks, nice. All right, well, it sounds like from just our in-person introductions, a bit of a split on the sports, the football situation, the Oscar situation, winter, some love it, some hate it. Looking in the chat as well, I see a bunch of folks have also contributed to your introductions. Thanks. Patty Stingle is rooting for the Chiefs, of course. Chiefs, ... of course. Love it. A number of Chiefs fans. Snowboarding. Haven't seen any, someone's rooting for the Joker to win Best Picture. Have not seen any lovers of the socks, I'm sorry to say, but I may be missing it. Holiday decorations, nice. I love snow. Go 49ers. Okay, Amy Bush, I see you there. I will support you in your Western love, your Western area. And like Sharon as well, I'm also just rooting for a good football game. I just love a good football game. So yeah, please keep typing in your intros, you guys. It's super helpful, I know, for us here to see who's on, and potentially for you as well. Just at a glance, as we expected, there are people from multiple offices on today's webinar. We really want you guys to see each other as well virtually and connect with each other. When you type into the chat, you can select all panelists, all presenters. You can select a particular person. So if you want to message with each other, please feel free to do that at any point in today's presentation. So thank you for those introductions, and kicking us off, Brendan, take it away. Finger guns.
Thank you, Barbara. So again, welcome everybody. I'm just going to do a quick intro and turn it over to two stellar members of the VISTA Member Support Unit. What we're hoping to get out of today is that all ORO staff will be able to place members and leaders into their new service terms prior to their start. Understand and know the placement timeline, when things have to happen by when in order to have members start on time at their orientation. And to understand the importance of deadlines. They may seem like they're far ahead or way out in front, but this presentation will hopefully give you an understanding of everything that needs to happen once a member is placed, how to place a member once the member is placed prior to the orientation starting. So we do have a lot of information in only 1 hour today. So our goal is to get through all the material, then answer as many questions as time allows on this call. But hopefully, as you all know, the VMSU is always here to support you, so you can always reach out to us via email or phone. Before we get started and jump in and tell you all about it, we want to hear from you a little bit. How do you think, and you can please use the chat for this, how can accurate VISTA member placement benefit you and your members? I think a lot of times we just focus on the members, the sponsors, but the accurate and timely placement is a big help to staff as well, especially you in the field. So if you have any thoughts, we'd love to read them in the comments. We'll give you just a second to do that, and then we'll move on, but you can keep adding them through. While people are thinking that, I want to share some resources that are available to you all at any times that you need. Of course, the VMAG, you can see specifically where member orientation and placement, reinstatement, where all these are located, and these links will take you there. The VISTA desk reference, of course, our campus, and our SharePoint. Another thing that, well, link that I did not put on here is that this presentation, as well as others, are available to all staff on the OFL ORO resources page on the VISTA SharePoint. So please make sure that you look at those too, but you'll have this as a follow-up as well. And thank you, Amy. Proper placement gets members paid, avoids over and underpayment, which can be a big issue for members. Providing A+ customer service, thanks, Zach. That's one of the things we try to achieve all the time here with the VMSU. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sam to start more of the presentation. Sam.
All right, so diving right into member placement, we're going to first talk about what makes somebody required to be at a VMO and what are our recommendations for some VMO enrollees. If you have a new candidate coming in that has never served with VISTA and never attended an orientation, those folks are always required to attend a VMO and be enrolled. Other ones are reinstatements. So a couple different requirements for these. If you have a reinstatement that has come in, this is somebody who is has served previously, they're coming back after a break in service of 1 day or more. So one of these folks have served, is coming in with less than 5 years since attending their last VMO, they can be placed as a reinstatement. They don't have to attend a VMO, but we highly recommend it. And I'm going to go through some of those benefits in a moment. Again, if you have another reinstatement who has, in over 5 years, has not attended a VMO, these folks are required to be enrolled in a VMO. So with the reinstatements coming in that are under 5 years, again, not required to be in a VMO, we encourage it for some of the following reasons. So with members, it helps them come in and be more informed of what forms they need to complete, because they get lots of auto-generated emails with that information. They're coming in with a cohort, so they have more resources with other members coming into that VMO. And they have more ability to ask questions, such as on the webinars they're attending. So if they have questions about their benefits, their service data, they have that outlet and that space to ask those questions as well. For OROs, lots of good benefits here as well. You wouldn't be responsible for swearing them in because they're sworn in on their launching webinar. You don't have to track their start and end date. and then additional tracking, like tracking their fingerprint deadlines, so you don't have to track those dates as well. For the VMSU and the BTU, I think it really brings a lot of benefits for tracking purposes on our end, and then following up on forms and data is more streamlined in the process of being enrolled into a VMO. All right, so diving in a little more on what's entailed into attending our VISTA member orientation. So this is really an overall introduction of what the VISTA program is, what our mission is, the history, and then some of the policies involved as well. So this consists of 2 different webinars. The first is going to be the countdown webinar. That's going to be approximately 1 week prior to their start date. Members are not required to be on site for this webinar. So they're still at home. They don't show up on their service site for this. They're just calling into this one. This webinar is really giving them an intro on their service benefits, information on showing up on site, and then gives them a lot of space to ask questions about those benefits and additional items that they need answers for. So we have our Launching Your VISTA Service webinar. This is going to be on their first day of service. They're required to be on site for this Launching Your VISTA Service webinar. So this is more surrounding VISTA member service terms, what it is to be serving as a VISTA, and then at the end of this webinar, they're sworn in for service because this is their first day on site and their start date of their term. So for the FY20 calendar, we have 14 VMOs this year and multiple in the summer. So next we're going to take a look at what this calendar is. All right, just to give you a nice visual of this upcoming fiscal year calendar, we just had our first VMO yesterday. So next upcoming we have is February 18th. And then if you take a look at through the summer, we have 3 in July and 3 in August. So heavy in the summer per usual, which is good, lots of enrollments. Just want to focus in on the enrollment deadline as well and really point this one out that you want to be aware of this, just because if you miss this deadline, you're going to have to enroll that member into the following VMO. So just be aware of your enrollment deadlines and make sure your sponsors are aware of that deadline as well. All right, so we're going to dive into more about reinstatements. As I mentioned earlier, these are members that have served previously as a VISTA. They're coming back to serve a second or additional term, and they have a break in service of 1 day or more. So to apply the reinstatement, they still go through that whole application process in applying for the listing using an updated application. So once they go through the approval process and placed in a term, they're still required to submit all onboarding forms, and they're required to submit a new oath as well since they've had a break in service. You want to aim when placing a reinstatement, you want to aim to place them 2 weeks prior to their expected start date. And I just want to point out that reinstatements differ from re-enrollments. A re-enrollment is somebody that has no break in service and they're processed through the future plans form. So reinstatements are different in that aspect. Also, to hit on some eligibility pieces for reinstatements, if a reinstatement has a break of service more than 120 days between those terms, it's required for them to have an NSWW, a new NSWW submitted, and they're also required to get fingerprinted again. So on the opposite of that, if a reinstatement comes in and they have less than 120 days between their terms, there's no new NSWW needed, and they do not need to get fingerprinted again. So again, on the other side, if somebody's coming in for the VMO enrollment portion, if someone has not attended a VMO for 5 years, they are required to be enrolled in VMO, and that start date must align with the orientation. All right, so I just want to give you a nice visual of our application flow chart. This is just a good way to see the life cycle that it goes through to get someone from when they apply for service to when they're assigned and placed into that term. So starting off, so the member first submits the application, it's under review by the sponsor, and then at that point, if they're selected by the sponsor, the member then goes into the status where they have to accept or decline the offer. And so if they decide to accept, at this point is when their citizenship and Social Security information goes to SSA and comes back typically in 3 to 5 business days as verified or returned. So then they're in pending state office approval status. And then it's up to you to approve or decline, and then if approved, assigning them. So ORO has essentially been delegated this application review and approval process and is responsible for making the initial decision based on the information they have in the application. All right, so when going in to review that application, you will, so when you sign into your staff portal, at the top row, you'll click on your recruitment tab, and then they will be located under the application submission requests. This is where, when you click on this, you're going in and reviewing each portion of their application, which we're going to go into further next. So when you're searching for that applicant's name, sometimes these work baskets can be a little touchy. So just try to use your different filter categories to try to find that name. So if you can't find it filtering by name, try last modified or date available or program just to see if you can locate that. If you're still having issues finding that person's name and the sponsor has verified that they've selected this applicant, you can contact VMS View and we can help to try to figure out what's going on with locating this member's name. All right, so some of the eligibility pieces when selecting a member. So I know I talked to you earlier that you're going to review this entire application. You first want to make sure that their citizenship and Social Security number have verified. If not, and you see that one is returned, you should have received an automated email stating that it was returned. But essentially what would need to happen next is the applicant would have to submit documentation. And that would eventually get to the VMS View, and we would be responsible for manually verifying. Additionally, at this point in the process, you are running and submitting an NSWW check to ensure that they're eligible in that aspect. Also, for criminal history, under that background questionnaire tab, you want to make sure you review that. If there is any criminal history disclosed on there, you are required to submit a criminal history justification form for an applicant to our criminal history team for review. So any necessary details you need, you'll just follow up with the applicant. Again, so that final decision, especially regarding criminal history, lives with VISTA headquarters. And then in addition to some of those eligibility pieces, you want to make sure you're reviewing the application for education, experience, going through their references and the sponsor recommendation form just to make sure they're a good fit both for you and the project. So once you've made your final decision after reviewing all those pieces, you will then accept the candidate and submit it. All right, so once that is submitted and approved, they will drop into this placement request work basket. This is so you'll just click their name to pull it up, and you can, again, sort it in different ways if you can't find it and the portal is not cooperating. Use those different sorting mechanisms to find this person. So this is the avenue for when you're going to place this person into the actual service term. And if they don't have a member homepage yet, this is the point where their member homepage is created. All right, so once you click their name and pull this up, this is the screen that you'll see, and this is where you'll input all of their service data. And we're going to go more in depth about what each sector involves.
I think there's a little video lag, sorry,
Yeah.
Sam, in
No worries.
some of the slides. Okay, 1 second.
We're letting it catch up.
It's fine.
All right, there we are. All right, so in this top section, it's going to pre-populate based on the project listing that the applicant has applied for. So that program code will already be listed, program name is going to be there. And then, so the site drop-down will not be selected yet, so you're going to use that drop-down menu to select the correct site. So this is extremely important. You want to make sure you are selecting the correct site that this member is physically serving at, because it has a lot of implications. And we at headquarters use this information to determine things such as relocation eligibility, ensuring they're placed at the correct pay tier. It could have implications for tax purposes when the W-2s are mailed out. If the members are still in service, they're being mailed to that service site. So you just want to make sure that that site is correct. So if you do not see the correct service site in there, you're going to have to do an amendment to the MA to make sure that site populates. So an example of like when incorrect sites could be selected is sometimes when there's like national projects, that obviously there's like multiple service sites. You just want to make sure that like you are verifying that the member you're placing is physically serving at the site that you're selecting. All right, in our next section, you're going to be selecting their VMO that they're going to be enrolled in, if they're going to be enrolled in the VMO, and their start and end date. So to determine if the candidate needs to be in the VMO, if they are a new candidate, again, at the beginning we talked about new candidates never served with VISTA, they must be enrolled into a VMO. And then reinstatements have 2 different eligibilities, but again, we recommend and encourage that all reinstatements be placed and enrolled into a VMO, just because there's a lot of great benefits to this for tracking purposes and then for your end as well. Usually when you come to the screen, it'll auto-populate to the next upcoming VMO, but again, you can change it on the drop-down menu to your preferred VMO for that member. For the start date, if you are enrolling somebody into a VMO, their start date is required to match the VMO start date. For the completion end date, it's usually the start date minus 1 day for the following year, but we are in a leap year right now, so it is going to be minus 2 days in the following year. And so for the remainder of the placement screen, we're going to have the service category on here. So this is descriptive of the type of work they're doing. The purpose code, you're selecting how they're going to be paid by CNCS. So whether that's a standard member, paid by CNCS, by grant, paid by their project. You have cost share, which in the next slide, we're going to give you some examples of what some of those are. And then you're selecting the pay plan to determine, and you're determining this based on the member's county that they're serving in. For the adjustment allowance box, you're determining the eligibility of what they're going to have. So the settling in allowance or the fingerprint subsidy, and this is based on the member specifically. So if you have a brand new member that is relocating 50 plus miles, they're going to get both the fingerprint subsidy, the $25, and the $750 settling in allowance. So I have $775 in that box. But say you have a reinstatement that has less than 120 days between their terms and they're relocating, they would not get the fingerprint subsidy and only the settling in allowance. If they're eligible for none of these, you'll just drop 0 into that box. So make sure you're determining what the member is eligible for in regards to relocation and fingerprint subsidy to determine what you're putting into that box. And then you just check yes or no whether or not they're relocating. All right, and just wanted to give you a visual of some of our most common codes. On the top where we have our full year member purpose codes with our standard, cost share, grant standard, and grant cost share. There are leader purpose codes, and then we put the summer associate purpose codes as well on there. And then our bottom row determines like who and how they're paid. And we have a link down here that's helpful to our VISTA Living Allowance page, where you can see these codes, the pay plans, living allowance codes by county. This is a very helpful resource to make sure you're when you're placing somebody, you're putting them at the correct pay code. And now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Kate.
Hello there. So going back to the question that Brendan asked at the beginning of the webinar, what is the benefit of accurate member placement? And I think Amy really hit the nail on the head when she said that accurate placement information ensures that members get paid accurately and on time. It also helps to make sure that members get the benefits that they're entitled to, such as relocation benefits, and minimizes issues that require retroactive assignment updates and changes to member data after activation. If a member is placed with the incorrect pay tier for the county where they're serving, they might get overpaid, which eventually can cause the debt to CNCS to go to collections if it can't be collected back from the member. In addition, if a member is placed with an incorrect site address, they might get an incorrect relocation reimbursement voucher based on incorrect mileage to a site address where they're not actually serving, which means that they're not necessarily getting the full benefit that they're entitled to. If there aren't enough slots on the MA to activate the member as the purpose code that's indicated in the placement screen, then the member can't be activated in certain circumstances, which might cause a delay in the member receiving their benefits. These are just a few examples of what can happen when a member is placed with incorrect placement data, but I think it really highlights the importance of ensuring that the data is correct prior to the member's first day of service. So once a member is placed for service, they have access to their My AmeriCorps homepage. At this point, they have an NSP ID versus an applicant ID, and this is the point at which they can start completing the onboarding forms that are required before they can be activated for service. Like Sam said earlier, there are definitely benefits to having members enrolled in a VMO because they'll receive a bunch of automated emails, both from the VMSU and from the training unit, with instructions on how to complete the required onboarding forms, and then in addition, the guide to entering VISTA service, which gives them additional information about the webinars that they'll be attending, and then also to reminders about completing those forms. If you have a reinstatement that's not enrolled in a VMO, then the candidate will receive communications directly from the VMSU regarding onboarding forms. So you might be wondering, if you haven't completed them yourself, what those required onboarding forms are. All members have to complete direct deposit information or indicate that they'd like to receive payment via check. They have to complete a W-4, so we know how much to withhold in taxes from their living allowance payments. They have to complete a designation of beneficiary, which is basically in the unfortunate case of a VISTA member passes away during service, we need to know who to pay any unpaid funds to. And then they also have to select their end of service benefit, so either the education award or the end of service cash stipend. In addition, VISTA members have to accept the terms and conditions of VISTA service, which they take the course on VISTA campus, and then they accept it on their My AmeriCorps member homepage. Again, members will get emails to remind them to complete these forms. Typically, it's the VMSU contacting the member directly. However, if we can't get in touch with the member or it's their first day of service and they haven't completed any forms, it is likely that we'll follow up with portfolio managers just to try to get in touch with the member or the sponsor, because we've observed that in these cases, if a member hasn't completed any forms and it's their first day of service, it is highly likely that they will not be serving with VISTA at this time. We can't activate candidates until they've completed all of those forms, so it is important that they're done before the first day of service, and failure to complete them in a timely fashion will cause a delay in receiving their first living allowance payment, and then it also might cause a delay in their start date where they would have to wait to participate in the next demo. Okay, so to talk a little bit more about relocation benefits, like Sam mentioned earlier, relocation benefits are flagged through the placement screen based on information that you portfolio managers receive from the sponsor about whether or not a member is relocating to serve. Any member whose original home of record, which is where they were living immediately prior to starting VISTA, where they were living when they applied, is 50 miles or more away from their project site, is entitled to relocation benefits. And again, this is typically flagged before the member starts service because members are expected to relocate to their project sites prior to their first day of service so that they can be on site to attend that FEMA webinar. Members who are flagged as relocating are eligible to receive two separate payments. They receive a one-time $750 settling-in allowance that's paid out in their first living allowance payment. This payment is subject to tax. And then they also receive a mileage reimbursement based on the distance between their original home of record and their project site. So again, not to, what's the expression, beat a dead horse, but it is important that project site addresses are correct because this is how we generate those mileage reimbursements for members. The mileage reimbursement is posted as a voucher to the member's MyAmericorps account. The member needs to sign the voucher, submit it to the VMSU, and members are typically paid via direct deposit within 8 to 10 weeks from the time that we receive that form. A little more information about fingerprints and NSOPWs. All first-time VISTA members and VISTA leaders will need to have a clear NSOPW report, so that's either a clear report or a report that has hits that have been adjudicated, and an FBI background check. Members receive a $25 fingerprint subsidy to get their fingerprints completed, and then those completed fingerprint cards must be submitted to VISTA headquarters within 30 days of the member's first day of service. For members who are reinstating, it depends on the number of days between their two service terms on whether or not they will need to have a new NSOPW and a new FBI background check. So again, you just want to be mindful of whether or not there's been more or less than 120 days between reinstating member service terms. Okay, so the oath of service. All VISTA members are required to take an oath of service on their first day. For those who are enrolled in VMOs, they're sworn into service as part of the webinar. The oath unlocks immediately after the webinar, and they complete it with information that's provided to them on the webinar. For reinstatements, they're sworn in by ORO staff, typically portfolio managers, on their first day of service. The VMSU has to manually unlock the oath, so if for any reason you have a reinstating member and the oath is not appearing on their account, just email the VMSU and let us know so that we can go ahead and unlock it. And the name listed on that oath will be for the ORO staff member who called that member and conducted the oath over the phone. In order to activate members, the member's name, the CNCS official, and the first day of service must be accurate on the oath. The member's name has to be the same name that's listed on their MyAmericorps portal. And again, if this information is not correct, we'll follow up both with ORO staff and with the member directly, just to clarify the member's official start date or sometimes to reset members' oaths when they misspelled their own name. Activation. So again, all of these required forms and the oath forms must be accurate and complete before the VMSU can activate members. It typically takes around 5 business days to activate members just because we have to verify that all forms are in, all oaths are correct, and just clarify any start dates that are out of line or members who need to be ended in training before we can go ahead and get everyone activated. Once a member is activated, under their service term on their MyAmericorps member account, there should be a status that shows saying that the member is in service. In addition, once members are activated for service, they'll start to appear on the sponsor verification form that sponsors need to complete just to verify that members are currently serving. However, as we all know, there are some circumstances where members decide that service is not for them at this time. So this is a circumstance where we would end a member in training. And this is a member who never reported to site and has decided that they're not interested in serving with VISTA at all. This doesn't bar the individual from serving with VISTA in the future. However, it does remove their application from the listing so that the project can continue to recruit. If you have a candidate who's not interested in serving right now, but plans to serve with the project in the near future, this is a circumstance where the individual should not be ended in training, but instead you should update the service date and just coordinate with the VMSU and BTU to make sure that the individual is enrolled in an upcoming VIVO event. If you do want the individual to be ended in training, please send an email to the VMSU just to explain that the individual is not planning to serve as a VISTA and needs to be ended in training, and copy the BTU to ask them to remove the individual from the VISTA member orientation. There are circumstances where members who are ended in training appear on that sponsor verification form for one pay period. So if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to the VMSU, but you can also just double check yourself because you can see a status in the member account that says that the member never served, which indicates that they were ended in training. One caveat to this is if you have a member who reports to site for one day, they do need to get paid. So in this circumstance where a member reported to site for one day and then decided that VISTA wasn't for them, the individual would need to be activated for service, and then their exit would be processed as an early termination just to ensure that they can get paid for that one day that they did serve as a VISTA member. There's a few issues that can come up from time to time when placing VISTA members. These are a few of the issues that we identified here at the VMSU, and some steps that you could take to solve them. Again, if you do encounter any other issues, the VMSU is always happy to help troubleshoot, and the National Service Hotline can provide support when there are technical issues. Sometimes there can be an issue with MA dates where you have you're trying to place a member, but the dates of the MA expire during the member's expected service term. In this circumstance, you would need to amend the MA just to extend it so that you can place the member for those days that they're trying to serve. Sometimes references don't always appear or attach on the application, so if you do have this issue, you can just send the references to the VMSU and we can manually attach them. I haven't experienced this one very often myself, but I have known it to come up and prevent placement. If you have an applicant that's not showing in your work basket, first you'll want to check with the candidate to make sure that they've accepted the position, and then also follow up with the sponsor to make sure that they've selected the candidate in eGrant. So this is kind of going back to that application timeline that Sam showed earlier, just making sure that you're at the right point in time in the timeline for the individual to show up in your work basket. Again, I think we all know that the portal can be really wonky, so if you think it's a technical issue or you've tried all of the above, definitely reach out to the hotline and they can help troubleshoot any technical issues that might be more systemic. Lastly, a few notes about citizenship and Social Security. You won't be able to place a member unless the citizenship and Social Security is verified. Unfortunately, this is not really a process that can be expedited. The first step is that it requires the member to submit documentation. So the member needs to contact the National Service Hotline, get a secure link, and submit their documentation. As soon as that documentation is received by the VMSU, which can take a few business days for it to get from the hotline to the VMSU, it takes around 3 to 5 business days for that citizenship and SSN to be verified because it has to go to the Social Security Administration. So again, this is going back to those deadlines and sort of why those deadlines exist at the beginning, because there are some processes that can't be speeded up. But again, if you want any status updates or just assistance with this process and figuring out if a member is going to be able to serve in a particular VMO, feel free to reach out to the VMSU.
And this is Brendan again. We wanted to reiterate all of the resources that we have available to you all. Everything that's on the spreadsheet, the OFL ORO resource page on SharePoint. The other two, I think probably the most important resources you all have available to you that aren't on this is the email address vmsu@cns.gov. Do not hesitate to contact us when you send that email. It goes to a general email box and it gets distributed as needed for response. So the team has amazing turnaround and response time on those. And that way, if you send it to the email box, the VMSU email box, We are sure, it is always monitored, you're sure to get a response. That way, if you're not sending it to an individual who may be out or on leave for an extended amount of time. So I want to make sure you have that. We also have an internal staff-only phone number. This should not be giving out to sponsors. This should not be given out to members. This is internal only, which is 202-606-3907. This rings for all of the member support specialists here at headquarters, so you can contact that way as well. Thank you, Barbara, for putting the special secret phone number up on the chat. But at this point, I just want to say a big thank you to Sam and Kate for not only giving this presentation, but also all the work that went into putting it together. So thank you for that, and we hope that you all in the field find it an extremely helpful resource. At this point, we are going to open it up and see what questions you all have about VISTA placements. And I see one on here from Zachary. For program grants, do we put in the adjustment allowance?
I can happily answer this. So in program grants, if an individual has a code Z, if they're an A21 grant member, the system is going to know because of that code Z, it's never going to pay the member out. I would say, and Sam, you can nod if you think, I think the preference of the VMSU is yes to include the adjustment allowance because it helps us with our tracking. So it helps us know whether someone is entitled to relocation benefits. It helps us also identify like inconsistencies. So for example, if someone is not flagged as relocating, but I noticed that a program officer put $750 in the adjustment, I might follow up and say, hey, is this person actually relocating? It will never cause the member to get overpaid because our payroll system knows that Z means don't pay. So I would say that it's a tracking preference of the VMSU, but if you forget to do it or if you don't do it, no worries, no problem at all.
Great, thank you. So at this point, if you guys can unmute yourself, unmute your phone lines and ask us questions, please do. We'll see if that works. On the Zoom end, it doesn't seem as if there's an unmute all option for us. In the meantime, as folks are looking at that, at their phones or their computers, please do type in any questions you have in the chat. We can all see those, just like we saw Zachary's question. And our VMSU experts around this table can happily answer any detailed questions you have. So any questions at all about VISTA member placement and all the good information you've received? I do have a follow-up question, but this is Barbara again, just for my own reminder. You guys talked about the onboarding courses and the forms and all of that. Is it the VMSU that tracks whether or not members complete that, did you say? And sorry if I missed that in the presentation.
Yeah, so we're tracking all the onboarding forms from direct deposit, W-4, insurance benefit, terms, conditions, beneficiaries. Yeah, we are tracking all of those forms for completion and doing all of like the follow-up to make sure they're completed in a timely manner.
Got it. We're the VMSU that does the follow-up. Great.
Yep, yes. And I would say that as far as like the courses, so like just the campus component, we are tracking that they are accepting the terms and conditions. We're not necessarily tracking whether or not they went through VISTA campus and did all the modules, which we sometimes get questions from members.
Yeah, we actually, in the VISTA training unit, when we're managing the member orientations, we get that question all the time from members about how they themselves can track their own completion. And certainly for the courses, we know there's no way for them to do it other than manually, just writing down that they completed it. For the forms, it sounds like that they can see in the portal that they've completed stuff.
So they can track it on their own to see what they've completed.
Great. So just for field staff, if you get asked that question by members or by sponsors, that could be helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. There's a question, it looks like, in the chat box. When a member re-enrolls with no break, when should a member see the second term in the portal? What say you, VMSU?
Yeah, so when a member is re-enrolling, as long as the Future Plans Form, or FPS, is submitted, and in our work basket, we cannot process that until the day after the member completes their first service term. So if they end their service yesterday, and they're re-enrolling for their new term with no break in service today, we can process it today. We typically try to aim to get this process as soon as possible, but sometimes it could take up to three business days to get those processed. But if it is in there, it will be processed prior to payroll to make sure that they get their payment for their new service term. So the day after they complete the first term is the first day we can process it.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that question. Great, thanks, Sam. What else can our esteemed panel tell you today about VISTA member placement? Maybe she has the waiting music like on Jeopardy. Is that what
This is Carly, and I will hopefully not be talking out of turn since I've been back for all of like 10 hours now. But given that the fun thing about this is like they're human, so there are nuances and there are situations that arise that there is no policy or procedure set in place for. And in those cases, the VMSU really wants to collaborate with you and talk through the situations, and is always happy to take the phone call or the email in advance to give you guidance on how you can best handle that. I think it's not a secret that our technology systems are not as fluid and accommodating as we would all like them to be. And so I think if you're ever running into a weird situation or you're uncertain what to do, reach out to the VMSU. Brendan gave you the BAT phone number, so you can call directly and talk to someone, and they'll be happy to help you and give you the guidance on the best way to approach a nuanced situation.
Absolutely, and I think it's easier on everyone's end to talk about it beforehand than trying to figure it out on your own and then having to go back and correct items. So yes, thank you, Carly. Don't hesitate to reach out.
Great, I think with that, looks like there's another question in the chat. Thank you, guys. I'm just gonna read this in case you can't see the chat where you are. What is the best way to check if someone is eligible for VISTA Leader Service, that is, they completed a full term?
I can take this one away. So there's a few different ways you can check. So if someone is looking to qualify for a VISTA Leader Service term based on previously completing a full year of VISTA service, the way that you can check if they've completed a full year of VISTA service is through their My AmeriCorps member homepage. You could go click on that previous service term, see that it says, you know, their service dates are a year, which is what it should be as expected, see that the member exited, and then if the member selected education award, you should be able to see that they received that education award. And I'm looking at my colleagues here, hoping these aren't just VMSU super user roles, but if you see that a member receives an education award, that means that they completed a full year of service and they would be eligible. If a member is looking to be eligible for a VISTA Leader Service term based on previous AmeriCorps service with state and national, there's a Discover report, and I'll have to get the exact name of the report for you. I can't think of what it is off the top of my head, but it's something like previous service report, and this is something that we can send out, but basically it will let you know if a member served a full-time or part-time service term, it'll let you know the amount of hours. And I think this information is in the VDR as well, just how you can check previous AmeriCorps service. And again, that's going to be a Discover report. And then if it's through Peace Corps service that they're looking to qualify for a VISTA Leader, the member would just need to provide their description of service that says that they served a full term of Peace Corps service. I think those are all of the ways that you could check, but again, if you ever have any doubt, I know Eric Powell in the VISTA training unit is very adept at determining if people are eligible to be a VISTA leader, so VISTA training or VMSU, and we typically try to find those as well before we would ever activate someone for service or before they start at BMO.
Yeah, Eric Powell is quite a detective, that is true. Folks don't know that already. Okay, well, I think just in the interest of time, I think I'm looking at my colleagues. We are, as you've heard, Our VMSU gurus are available to you on the phone and online for follow-up after we wrap up today. And then you guys know we'll be available to you as we move forward. So I just want to, this is Barbara again, I just want to transition to some wrap-up comments to close out today's presentation. What happens next once we leave this Zoom room? We, of course, always invite you to reach out to us with questions about member placement or anything in the world of VISTA. We are at your disposal in the JIRA system. We, as Brendan said, I think, and as I said as well, we will have the recording for today's presentation available for you and all of your colleagues. As follow-up, we'll have that posted in SharePoint and announced to you in about a week. You hopefully know we host monthly open office hour calls, just open phone lines, to talk through, again, anything and everything VISTA land. And then we also have these monthly webinars. And so that's something we'll continue to do as we get into February and March. And then, of course, we hope that collectively, all of you guys will work with us as we continue to build out the curriculum and our support system and our work for all of our ORO colleagues from phase 1 as we turn our attention to the phase 2 orientation and training. You know, that is coming soon down the pike. So just for some calendaring, if you don't already have these dropped in Outlook, our next open office hours is going to be February 18th, 3 to 4. And then our next webinar on the very, very juicy topic of budget and MSY management will be February 25th. You will get the details and the login for these as we get into February, but I just for now want to make sure you have those dates and times penciled in on your calendars. So I know we've covered quite a lot of content today. Again, as Brendan said, kudos to Sam and Kate and to Carly and to Brendan for going through the very interesting and sometimes complex world of VISTA member placement. I hope this information gave you guys some nice context as you're looking at the VISTA desk reference or looking at other guidance that you have. Just hearing the experts' voices and hearing them respond to your questions, I hope that was really useful. And we certainly looked at a number of things in our agenda. I hope that you will take away from this, that you have a really good sense from the beginning, or you have just a kind of more confidence in how to place VISTA members and leaders into their service. We hope you have a really solid understanding of the placement timeline. And again, as all of our presenters have indicated, the importance and really the consequences of the various deadlines that within the systems that we work within. So to help Team VISTA be great champions and supporters for you, please take a few minutes to give us feedback on today's presentation. You can see this link in your on your screen right now, and I'm going to drop that link into the chat as well. It should also automatically show up when we log off the webinar, but in the event that it doesn't, I will put that in the chat as well. The survey is going to be open for the next 9-10 days, so if you don't have time this afternoon, that's fine, but we really welcome and need, frankly, your feedback on today's presentation so we can improve future work together. So that said, again, thank you all for logging on and spending your time with us today. It's been a real pleasure. Please feel free to reach out with questions, and we will hear you and see you in just a little bit of time. So have a good afternoon.